Big news dropping just yesterday in an interview with Blizzard. They're changing up how Mythic rating works for the first time in a while, boys. Also, some interesting patch notes coming in. We got some class changes going live with 12.0.5 that I want to talk about because it's going to make healing a lot easier and a few other things to get into. So let's just dive straight in here. 12.0.7, that's right. We're getting 12.0.5 in the next reset, but I'm already talking about the next patch. So 12.0.7 is now on the encrypted Blizzard servers. That's right. That means you can't data mine it or anything, but that does mean they are progressing on to the next patch. 12.0.5 is locked and loaded, and 12.0.7 is now being fully developed. So Blizzard's moving at a breakneck pace. We still got 12.1 to launch, which is the next season and everything before BlizzCon hits in September. So that's your solid timeline right now. September 12th is really the only solid date we have to go off of what's going to happen before and after. So we're moving at a breakneck pace here. More things coming, 12.0.5. Bunch of nerfs happening across the board for raiding and dungeons. Blizzard trying to make this game even easier, which we all like to see. For Midnight Falls, we see on the March on Quel'Danas, we see some health reductions here and ability reductions for Midnight Falls, the fight. Dust Crystal health reduced by 10%, Glimmering damage reduced by 10%, Shattered Sky damage also reduced by 10%. All of these on Mythic difficulties. We've been seeing nerfs constantly going through since the Race to World first wrapped up, which is a pretty normal thing. That's typically what you see. Also, a bunch of other changes happening. For the raid, we talked about Lura happening on Mythic difficulty, all the nerfs that are coming with that. Also, Crown of the Cosmos adjustments should make things easier for raiders who are chasing AOTC. For the everyday player, all difficulties of Myasara Caverns, Seat of the Triumvirate, the Windrunner Spire, and the Windrunner Spire should be a bit smoother with bug fixes and nerfs to health for some trash mobs. For anyone heading out to do this week, the Arcantina quest, the Fragrance of Dunes, is now unbugged as well, so that should be able to be finished off of the objectives to snag some more decor. So the actual changes that are going to affect here, you can see really nerfs to mobs and stuff happening. A bunch of ability nerfs. We did see 1 minute added to one of our dungeons. God, which one was it? The freaking one that's the hardest right now. Is it Myasara? Yeah, so the dungeon that has got an extra minute, so that's good to see. We've basically been seeing this whole entire season get easier and easier as Blizzard continues to make these changes. No buffs to any single dungeon has happened this entire season yet. It's all been nerfs across the board, so that's great to see. Blizzard continues to try to make this stuff a little bit easier for us. And that easiness is coming with some new achievements, which we'll talk about here and again in a second. I talked about them yesterday, but there's some other stuff to get into in terms of what those achievements mean going forward. By the way, if you're raiding, just wanted to put this out there. There is a bug with the light-blinded Vanguard right now where you're just not summonable, so you end up standing in the room with no bosses to kill for a little while. Not sure if this has been fixed yet, but there's no RP animation or anything going on. Essentially, you just can't summon the bosses, can't do anything. This is, I'm assuming, is going to get hotfixed. Might already be by the time you watch this video if you're watching it on YouTube, but currently, this shit's bugged for some people. Now, talking about those Mythic Plus achievements. If you missed my video yesterday, first of all, fuck you for not keeping up with me. How dare you? But second of all, as a man of the people, of course I'm willing to repeat myself a little bit. But there's also some new shit here. So, Keystone Myth and Umbral Champion. If you don't know what these are yet, we have a new, basically, achievement for a 3400 rating. The new 3400 rating is going to be giving you a choice of old mounts. That's right, old mounts returning from old Mythic Plus seasons or some other mounts. So Blizzard describes these choices as exchange for a mount of your choice from a curated selection including old Keystone Master mounts, Keystone Legend mounts from previous seasons, as well as some new mounts being added to the pool. So a lot of choices here. We'll talk about some of those choices. And then Umbral Champion. This is the new, basically, Gladiator version of Mythic Plus. The top 1%ers get a title and will be awarded an exclusive new mount. Now, if this thing, reaches the level at all of what we typically see with Gladiator mounts, it's going to be a chef's kiss of mounts. Basically, one of the best mounts in the game. The Gladiator mounts are always some of the best looking ones. So this one's going to be probably amazing, if I had to guess. But looking right now, what does this mean? Right? What do 3,400 ratings require? What is the top 1% going to look like? So looking right now at the numbers, if we just had a cutoff of what that would look like, these are the charts that'll show us what the top 1%ers are. For a 3,400 score, you're essentially going to need to time everything at a plus 16. So all 8 dungeons at a plus 16 should get you a 3400. So that's where people are going to need to push to now to be able to get that rating. It's pretty crazy looking right now. For Keystone Master, a 2500 rating, typically 25% of the player base eventually get that during the season. And then for the new one that we just got last season of the War Within, Keystone Legend, 3K. That rating, 12 to 15% of the player base end up getting that. So really, for a 3400 rating, you're almost looking at a top 1% at that point. Now, that's if we looked at the scores right now, that would essentially be what the top 1% would look like. But by the end of the season, top 1%ers are going to have much higher scores. I would expect maybe 4K ratings and stuff to get in the top 1% at least. So these people are going to be pumping hard, and they're going to be getting some freaking high-ass key numbers. Now, right now, if we looked at the top 1%, okay, top 1%, what it would look like, you would need if we just took a snapshot, for the EU, you'd have to have a 3416 rating, and for the NA, a 3349. Now, we're super early in the season. That's not going to be the final cutoff, but if we're looking at just what the numbers are, okay, if we stop the season today, that's what the ratings would be for the top 1%ers. You're talking about a 3.3K rating. Like I said, you're going to have to get close to 4K probably by the end of the season to really get this shit. There's also a lack of motivation right now to really push beyond 3K because there's no achievement. But when the 3400 achievement comes out, you best believe people are going to be pushing those keys even higher. So we're expecting some pretty damn high ratings, probably record high ratings, I would assume, on average for this season because of these achievements that are going out. But anyways, these achievements, if we're looking at the class breakdowns here, you can see mostly Unholy DKs would be up at the top, where if we're looking at what top 1%ers for that Umbral Champion, Devour Demon Hunters would be second, Demonology Warlocks, Augmentation Evokers, Frost DK, Retribution Paladins, Elemental Shaman, Beast Mastery Hunters. If we're going from the top down here, from the bottom up, Devastation Evokers would be the least in terms of the top boys. Followed by Destro Warlock, Fire Mage, Frost DK, Affliction Warlock, Outlaw Rogue, Arcane Mage, Windwalker Monk, Survival Hunter. So look at this chart. It's an interesting breakdown. Looking at EU NA, I'm sure it's kind of the same breakdown here, but I was surprised to see Unholy Death Knight at the top in terms of people pushing keys the highest right now. For tanks, Brewmaster Monk, not a surprise to see Brewmaster Monk as the highest rated, constantly, pushing the highest keys right now. They are the meta tank, and then Restoration Druid for healing. No surprise there as well. They are the top ones right now for healing. So those are part of the meta. It's expected to see them at the top. I guess you could say the same for this. I mean, these are Devour's part of the meta, Augmentation Evoker's part of the meta. So you're seeing the meta specs essentially pushing the highest number keys. Now, going forward, what this means, like I said before, I think we're going to see some of the highest ratings we've seen in quite a while. Looking at previous seasons, this is what the ratings would have been for the top 1%. We're talking about a 3K to a 3.5K rating. Would have put you in the top 1% for those older seasons. Now, again, there was no reason to push higher, so people didn't really care to. I think we're going to see some really high scores this season. We'll see what it ends up being. But a crazy new thing Blizzard added in mid-season, man. We're getting this in the next patch. Next Tuesday's reset, this thing will be live, and you can start pushing for that 3400 rating or pushing for that top 1%. Now, what does it mean with the mounts, right? Getting that 3400 rating, what kind of mounts will you be able to get? Well, they already talked about previous seasons. We know there's some unannounced mounts coming that you'll be able to select from, but if we're looking at just previous seasons mounts, Keystone mounts, we're looking at the Awakened Mind Borer. That's a shitty, ugly-looking mount, if I'm being honest. For Shadowlands, we're looking at all the Deathwalker mounts. I mean, these were some really cool ones. I have them all. I mean, I'm just saying, I was pretty good in that expansion. But tons of choices there. Looking back at Dragonflight, all the Armordons will be available to choose from. So those were cool. I have the Infinite Armordon. Freaking love it. I have the other ones as well. But this one, it's a glorious-looking mount. I still ride that one around all the time. If we're looking back at the War Within, the Diamond Mech Suit, as well as the Shredder tanks that were made available, and then the Void Flyers as well. So these are just a few choices. Not sure how far back they're going to go in terms of what Keystone mounts you'll be able to get. But looking at these different, I mean, this is some good shit. And a Keystone Master, by the way, getting that as a achievement mount. That hasn't always been a thing, so we're not going to see some fucking Burning Crusade mount or something. But looking back at all the Keystone Master mounts, these are pretty good looking ones. Some of these are pretty good choices, and I really want to see what the new mounts, supposedly, that they're adding for choices here, in case you've gotten all these mounts in the past because you're a Giga Chad who just always gets Keystone Master. There will still be choices for you to get at that 3,400 rating, so we'll see what all that ends up being. Now, in terms of class changes, going live next week, you're going to feel much better about healing and getting healed in general. Blizzard's buffing healing across the board, and some of these changes are a pretty big deal. Let's talk about some of them here. First of all, Restoration Druid. I don't know what's going on. Somebody at Restoration Druid, I don't know if they're trying to impress a girl or what's going on, but somebody loves Restoration Druid right now. They're currently the S tier healer, and now they're getting all their damage increased. I don't even know what's going on here, but we see for Restoration Druid, we see Wrath damage increased by 40%, Starfire damage increased by 40%, Star Surge damage increased by 40%, Sunfire damage increased by 25%, and Moonfire damage increased by 25%. These changes are intended to increase the viability of caster-oriented playstyles, which involve applying damage over time effects using Starfire, Wrath, and Star Surge. So, I mean, Restoration Druid is going to continue to be amazing. For Evoker, all healing for Preservation Evokers being buffed by 5%, and Verdant's Embrace mana cost reduced by 25%. For Monk, we're seeing Mistweaver, all healing reduced by 5%. Oh shit, I thought these were all buffs. Wait a minute. Preservation reduced by 5%. What the fuck? Are they just buffing Restoration Druid? Oh no. Why? Restoration's the top. I'm so confused by this. Okay, at least I know Holy Paladin's a buff. Holy Paladin, we got Holy Shock healing increased by 10%, Ward of Glory healing increased by 20%, Eternal Flame and healing increased by 20%. We also see Light of the Dawn healing increased by 20%, and Greater Judgment's Absorb increased by 250%. So Holy's a buff. Mistweaver Monk's a nerf. We also see Evoker is a nerf, and Restoration Druid's a buff. For Discipline Priest, also getting a buff, it looks like Power Ward Shield absorption increased by 25%, Void Shield absorption increased by 25%, Flash Heal increased by 25%, Shadow Mend healing increased by 25%, Power Ward and Plea healing increased by 25%. And then Holy Priest, all healing done increased by 8%. So nice buffs to Priest there. For Shaman, all healing done increased by 8%, and all their damage dealt increased by 30%. So mostly buffs, except for some reason, Evoker and Monk. I don't know. I don't know why they're nerfing them. That's fucking read. That's weird. Lawyer can't read. Imagine that. I know. Crazy shit. Well, the thing is, like, I was looking at these notes earlier, and I was like, oh, overall, these are really good for healing. Thinking that they're just buffing all the healing, totally missing that this shit is actually a reduction. So, damn. It sucks for them. But moving on to the most important piece of news today, and honestly, a shocker. Mythic rating is getting something new, guys, in 12.0.7. So we're seeing a Sporefall raid enter in 12.0.7. This is a single boss raid. Exciting stuff. We're getting a 0.7 patch with a raid. I mean, we haven't seen that. I don't know if we've ever seen that. But the thing that Blizzard is doing with this, and they revealed this in their recent interview, is they are going to make it a flexible Mythic raid. That's right, no longer locked at the 20-man. We're going to see a 15 to 25-man flex raid for Mythic difficulties. Now, Blizzard gave their reason for doing this. We aim to make this raid more approachable. One of the pieces of feedback that we've heard a lot from Mythic players in particular, and Heroic players, is that it is very difficult to make the transition from Heroic to Mythic. This is true. We've seen this plenty of times on stream. We'll get to a point where we're basically farming Heroic, and we can't even kill the first Mythic boss. It's tough. So this is going to be a one-boss raid in Harandar called Sporefall, and we're excited. For the first time, we're going to be offering Mythic Flex difficulty, so you'll be able to enter Mythic raid groups with a 15 to 25 players. So we hope that this will allow more groups who have maybe completed AOTC on their Heroic goals to transition into Mythic. So that's really our goal with this piece of content, is to make sure that if you finish the season in your Heroic group, that you feel like you can start to bite off a bigger challenge for your group and think about the long-term road of transitioning into Mythic difficulty. So this is fine. Maybe it makes Mythic rating more accessible, but if I'm being honest, if Blizzard really wants to make Mythic rating more accessible, they got to get rid of that fucking lockout. I think the lockout is the biggest barrier to entry for Mythic raiding. I mean, right now, especially after Race to World First is done, if they want to have a lockout for Race to World First, I totally get it. And you want to have a lockout for like those first 100 guilds. But once that's achieved, once that's all done, once the races and achievements are all gotten, I see no fucking reason to hold the damn lockout. Holding the lockout, the problem is that you got essentially people afraid to join pugs. You got people afraid to progress if they don't think they're going to get anything done. And then you got people who have commitments to guilds. And they got to remain committed to the guild, so they can't run a Mythic raid with anybody else outside of that. With heroic raiding, people aren't afraid to join a random. They're not afraid to join a raid mid-raid, right? Pick up a boss towards the end, whatever it is. You can always kind of swap and drop whatever you want with heroic raiding, so it's much more casual. I understand Mythic raiding is not supposed to be necessarily casual with this difficulty rating, but people aren't willing to help each other. People aren't willing to really pug it out. People aren't willing to join anything that's already started, so it's a tough place to be. They also fall apart really quick, right? Somebody leaves a Mythic raid after you killed the first boss. Good luck. Good luck finding anyone to replace them. That raid's basically broken at that point. So this is a nice start. You know, flex raiding, 15 to 25 man Mythic raids is cool. But at the end of the day, I think if they really want to make Mythic raiding accessible to everybody, at some point during a season, you just got to drop the lockout. Drop the lockout, let people start pugging that shit, and maybe you'll see more progression from random people instead of just competitive guilds. We'll see what ends up happening. Nice step forward, though, from Blizzard for today. That is all in terms of news.